Emily had always felt like she was walking through life with a sign on her back that invited whispers. From the moment she was old enough to brush her own hair, she knew she was different. Her hair was bright red, so bright that in the sunlight, it almost looked like flames dancing around her shoulders. While many people might consider that beautiful, the town where she grew up did not see it that way. People liked things that looked ordinary, simple, and familiar. Emily was none of those things. As a child, she would walk through the market with her mother, holding her hand tightly as strangers stared. She remembered one woman whispering to another, as if Emily couldn't hear her. Such an unusual color. Must be trouble when she grows up. People with hair like that bring storms. Emily didn't understand why hair could bother people so much, but she could feel the sting of their words. As she grew older, the comments never stopped. Some people thought they were being clever. "You look like you caught fire," they would say with a laugh. Others were not even pretending to be kind. "If only you looked normal," one boy said to her in school when she was only 13. Emily never forgot that moment. She learned to keep her head down and avoid attention. She wore her hair tied back, trying to hide as much of it as she could, hoping that people would look at her face instead of the bright red strands that refused to blend in. By the time she reached her early 20s, she felt as though she was carrying a heavy burden. She wasn't an unhappy person by nature. In fact, she had a gentle smile and a soft voice that made people comfortable. But the constant judgment wore her down. Every time someone made a comment, even a small one, it felt like another reminder that she didn't fit in. She lived in a small town where people had known each other for years, and everyone seemed to have a place except her. Emily worked at a small bakery where she spent her days kneading dough, arranging pastries, and greeting customers with polite warmth. She liked the routine, the smell of bread rising, and the peaceful mornings when the shop opened before the sun came up. But even there, she wasn't free from whispered remarks. She would hear customers say they had trouble trusting someone with such bright hair. She didn't know why her hair mattered so much, but she felt powerless to change their minds. She could dye it, of course, but she didn't want to. It was hers, and despite everything, she wanted to remain true to herself. One evening, after a long day at the bakery, Emily sat at the small wooden table in her rented room. She stared at the single candle flickering in front of her. Around her, the room was quiet, the kind of silence that made a person think deeply. She wondered if her life would always be like this, always feeling out of place, always standing on the edge of everything. She felt a longing inside her, a desire for something different, something bigger. She didn't want to spend her whole life being judged by people who didn't even know her. It was then that she first heard about the mail-order bride system. A few women in town had done it, married men from faraway places who needed companionship and help in building a home. Emily had always thought it sounded risky, but that night, something about the idea stayed with her. Maybe because she wanted a fresh start, or maybe because she was tired of waiting for something to change on its own. She had never been the kind of person to make impulsive decisions, but she also knew that nothing in her life would change unless she took a bold step. She spent days thinking about it. At the bakery, she found herself drifting off into thought, imagining what life might be like in a new place, where no one knew her, where no one had already made up their minds about her. She imagined wide skies, open fields, and people who didn't judge her at first glance. The idea felt frightening and exciting at the same time. Finally, one night, she made up her mind. She would write a letter. She didn't expect anyone to choose her, but she wanted to try. She took out a clean sheet of paper and a pen, sat by the window where moonlight touched her desk, and began writing. She wrote honestly about who she was, her kindness, her hope for a peaceful home, her willingness to work hard, and her desire to build a life with someone who respected her. She wondered whether she should mention her red hair. She hesitated, thinking about all the times it had brought her trouble. But she decided to be truthful. If someone chose her, they deserved to know everything, so she wrote it clearly, without shame, though her heart beat nervously as she did. She placed her photograph inside the envelope. The picture showed her standing near a tree, her red hair gently falling over her shoulders. She didn't smile too widely in the picture, but her eyes looked hopeful. She mailed the letter the next morning and waited. The days that followed were slow and restless. Every time she heard the mail carrier's steps outside, she felt her chest tighten. She received a few responses at first, letters from men who seemed polite and interested. But after she sent them her picture or described her appearance more clearly, their letters changed. Some stopped writing completely. Others began with sentences like, "I did not expect this," or, "I'm not sure we are a good match after all." She knew what they meant. They didn't say it directly, but she knew. Every rejection hurt. She tried to hide it, but the disappointment settled deep inside her. She told herself she shouldn't care so much, that these men were strangers, that their opinions didn't matter. But part of her felt as though her whole life was repeating itself, once again being judged for something she couldn't change. Still, she didn't give up. Something inside her kept whispering that her life didn't have to stay the way it was. She kept writing letters, hoping for one kind soul who didn't care about her hair, who wanted to know her for the person she truly was. Weeks passed, and one afternoon, she received a letter from a rancher named Thomas. His words were warm and respectful. He described a peaceful ranch far away, with rolling hills and a small but welcoming home. He said he wanted a partner who was gentle, hard-working, and honest. Everything he wrote sounded sincere. He didn't ask for beauty or special skills. He just wanted someone who could share a life with him. Emily replied, sending her photograph as she had done before, and waited with cautious hope. His next letter came quickly. He sounded eager, almost excited. He invited her to come and promised to meet her at the station. He didn't mention her hair at all. That small detail gave Emily a tiny spark of hope. Maybe, she thought, this would finally be her chance. She packed her belongings carefully, just a few dresses, her journal, and the small silver necklace her mother had given her years ago. The morning she left, she stood outside her room and took a deep breath. She was stepping into a new life, far from everything she had known. She felt fear and hope tangled together. But she walked forward. The journey was long. She watched the scenery change through the train window, forests, plains, tiny towns passing by like fading memories. She wondered what her new life would look like. She wondered what Thomas would be like in person. She imagined him greeting her with a kind smile, taking her hand, and welcoming her into a life where she wouldn't be judged. She held on to that hope tightly. After all her years of feeling out of place, she believed, maybe, just maybe, she was finally moving toward a place where she belonged. Emily reached the station with her small suitcase in hand, her heart beating a little faster than usual. The train slowed down, letting out a long, tired whistle as it came to a stop. She took a deep breath before stepping out. The air felt different here, drier, warmer, carrying the faint smell of dust and open land. She reminded herself that this was a new beginning, something she had been longing for. She looked around, hoping to spot a friendly face that matched the tone of Thomas's letters. People were scattered around the platform. Some were greeting loved ones with warm hugs. Others were rushing off without looking back. Emily scanned each face carefully, searching for someone who looked like the man she imagined. Her palms felt a little sweaty as she clutched the handle of her suitcase. She had never traveled this far alone before, and everything felt unfamiliar. Finally, she saw a man standing near a wooden post. He was tall, wearing a clean shirt, and holding his hat in his hands. He looked around with a slightly nervous expression. Emily recognized him from the photograph he had sent. Her heart lifted with relief. She took a step toward him, adjusting her hair and smoothing her dress. When she was close enough, she gently called his name. "Thomas?" He turned toward her. For a moment, his eyes widened. He looked at her from head to toe, but his gaze froze at her hair. Emily felt her heart drop inside her chest. She had seen that look many times before. It wasn't the look of a man meeting someone he hoped to welcome into his life. It was the look of someone who had suddenly changed his mind. He forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Oh, you're Emily," he said, sounding unsure. "Yes," she replied softly. "I'm happy to finally meet you." Thomas nodded, but something in his expression had grown stiff, distant. He shifted uncomfortably, clearing his throat. "There must have been a misunderstanding," he said slowly. "I didn't realize. I didn't expect." Emily knew exactly what he meant. She had heard different versions of that sentence her whole life. It felt like a cold hand gripping her heart, but she kept her posture steady, even though embarrassment started to warm her cheeks. "I'm sorry," he continued, still avoiding her eyes. "Back?" The word hit her like a heavy stone. Her journey had taken days. Her money was limited. Returning home wasn't a simple choice. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out at first. She didn't want to beg or sound desperate, yet the situation felt painfully unfair. I see," she finally whispered. "Thank you for letting me know." Thomas nodded quickly, as if relieved that she didn't argue. He placed his hat back on, turned around, and walked away without looking back. Emily watched him go, her stomach twisting painfully. People around her continued with their day, unaware that her heart felt like it was sinking deeper into the ground. She stood there for a moment, unsure of what to do. The platform seemed much larger now, and she felt small in the middle of it. She picked up her suitcase with trembling hands and walked toward the station entrance. She didn't want people to see her standing still, looking abandoned. Outside, the sun was bright, casting long shadows on the dusty ground. Emily walked to a small bench and sat down. She closed her eyes and took a long breath, trying to keep her emotions from spilling out. She told herself she had been through worse. But this felt different. She had come all this way, believing she was wanted, believing she was finally moving toward a life where she could belong, and now she was alone in a place she didn't know. She stayed there until her heartbeat calmed. When she finally opened her eyes, she noticed a few people looking at her not unkindly, but with curiosity. Her red hair always attracted attention, even when she wished it didn't. She looked away quickly and stood up. She needed a place to rest, at least for the night. Walking through the small town, she noticed that it was quiet and simple. Wooden buildings lined the main street. A general store, a post office, a church, and a small inn with a faded sign that read, "Boarding House." She decided to try the boarding house. The door creaked softly when she pushed it open. An older woman with gentle eyes welcomed her. "Looking for a room?" she asked kindly. "Yes, just for a little while," Emily replied, forcing a small smile. The woman nodded and showed her a modest but clean room. Emily placed her suitcase on the bed and thanked her. When the door closed and she was finally alone, she sat down on the bed and let herself breathe out everything she had been holding inside. She wasn't angry at Thomas. She wasn't even surprised. She was simply tired of always being judged first and known later. As evening approached, she looked out the small window. The sky was turning soft shades of orange and pink. She watched the colors blend gently, reminding her of the sunsets she used to admire back home. Despite everything, there was still beauty in the world. Even in moments when her heart felt heavy, she wondered what she should do now. Going back home felt like giving up, and she didn't want her journey to end like this. But staying here without a plan seemed impossible too. She felt caught in the middle, unsure of which direction to take. She spent the next few days walking through the town, learning its streets and the gentle rhythm of its daily life. She kept to herself, but she observed everything closely. The sound of horses' hooves on the dirt road, the way people greeted each other with small nods, the smell of fresh hay drifting from the stables. It was a simple place, but it had a quiet charm. Still, she could never shake the feeling of being watched. Her red hair made her stand out, and she often saw people glance her way. She kept her eyes down, pretending not to notice. She didn't want to draw attention. She didn't want questions or pity. One afternoon, she sat outside the boarding house with a notebook in her lap. She wrote letters she never sent, trying to make sense of her thoughts. She wrote about her disappointment, her hope for a new beginning, and the courage she knew she needed to keep going. She knew she wasn't weak. She had crossed states on her own, faced rejection, and still managed to stand tall. But she also knew she wasn't made of stone. Her heart hurt, and she allowed herself to accept that. As the days passed, she thought about taking a job in the town, maybe at the general store or the small bakery she had seen. She knew she needed to support herself if she stayed longer, but something also told her that her journey wasn't finished yet. She hadn't come all this way for her story to end with rejection. She didn't know what fate had planned for her. But she believed that sometimes life changed at the most unexpected moments. Little did she know, someone who would see her differently, someone who would see her as more than the color of her hair, was about to walk into her life when she least expected it. For now, she rested, gathered strength, and allowed herself time to breathe. She didn't realize it yet, but her life was slowly turning toward something better, something warmer. And soon, she would meet the person who would change everything for her. Emily woke up early the next morning, as she usually did. The soft light of dawn slipped through the curtains of her small room, painting the walls with a gentle glow. She stretched her arms and sat by the window, watching the quiet street outside. The town was peaceful at this hour. A few people were beginning their day, someone sweeping a porch, a baker unlocking his shop, a horse tied near the post with its tail flicking lazily. She liked mornings like this. They made her feel calm, even if her heart still carried the weight of what had happened. After getting dressed, she decided to take a walk. The air outside was cool and fresh. She held her notebook close to her chest, thinking she might find a nice spot to sit and write for a while. Writing always helped her untangle her thoughts. She walked slowly, observing everything around her. Though she still felt like an outsider, she couldn't deny the quiet beauty of this place. The sound of wagon wheels rolling over the dirt road, the distant chirping of birds, the simple wooden houses, it all created a calmness she rarely felt in her old town. As she turned a corner, she didn't notice a small rock sitting on the path. Her foot hit it, and her notebook slipped from her hands, falling open on the ground. A light breeze began flipping the pages. "Oh no," she said softly, bending to pick it up before the wind carried it farther. But before she could reach it, a strong hand gently placed itself on the notebook, stopping the pages from blowing away. She looked up and saw a man kneeling in front of her, holding her notebook securely. He had warm brown eyes, sun-kissed skin, and a friendly smile that appeared without effort. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, showing strong arms that looked used to hard work. He wore a dusty cowboy hat, tilted back slightly, giving him an open and approachable look. "You dropped this," he said in a gentle voice. Emily blinked, surprised. Most people who spoke to her stared at her hair first, but he wasn't doing that. His eyes stayed on hers, calm and kind. "Thank you," she said softly, accepting the notebook. He stood up and dusted off his hands. "Wind can be tricky in this part of town," he said with a small chuckle. "I've had my hat blow off more times than I can count." Emily smiled a little. "I'll be more careful." "Well, I'm glad I was passing by," he replied. Only then, after handing her notebook back, did he notice her hair glowing in the sunlight. But instead of the usual puzzled or judgmental expression she always received, something else crossed his face, something warm and appreciative, as if he was seeing something beautiful rather than strange. "That's quite a color you've got there," he said. But his tone was admiring, not mocking. Emily's smile faded slightly, and she looked down, expecting the familiar comments that usually followed. She braced herself, but he surprised her again. "It's brighter than the sun this morning," he said with a gentle grin. "Really something special." Emily's head lifted just a little. No one had ever said that to her before, not in that way. "I'm sorry," she said, unsure how to respond. "Most people don't usually say that." "Well, most people don't look close enough," he replied. There was something in his voice, steady, honest, and kind. It made her feel safe. "My name's Jack," he continued, offering his hand politely. "Emily," she replied, shaking it lightly. "Nice to meet you, Emily. I haven't seen you around before. You new here?" "Yes," she said softly. "I arrived a few days ago." He nodded. I hope the town's treating you well. She hesitated. Mostly, she answered quietly. Jack didn't ask for details. He didn't pry. He simply nodded again, as if he understood things without needing to hear them. Are you staying at the boarding house? He asked. Yes. Well, that's a good place. Miss Turner runs it kindly. She's like a mother to half the people in this town, he said with a smile. Emily felt herself relaxing for the first time since she had arrived. She wasn't sure why, but Jack's presence made her feel lighter, as if she didn't need to hide anything. Where are you headed with that notebook? He asked, pointing gently toward it. I like writing, she said. It helps me think. I understand, he said. Sometimes when I ride out to the fields, I just talk to my horse. Helps me think too. She laughed softly. Does the horse listen? More than most people, he replied playfully. Emily found herself laughing again. It felt good to laugh. She hadn't laughed much in the past few days. Jack glanced around. If you don't mind walking a little farther, I know a pretty spot just beyond the road. Good place to sit and write. Quiet. No one around to bother you. Emily hesitated. She didn't know him well, but his sincerity was impossible to ignore. There was no pressure in his voice, just a simple offer. She felt safe enough to trust him. All right, she said softly. Jack smiled, a warm smile that reached his eyes. Follow me. They walked side by side out of town, following a narrow path that led to a small hill overlooking the fields. The grass moved gently in the wind, and the sky seemed wide and endless. Emily felt her heart calm as she looked at the beautiful view. This is lovely, she said, taking in the scenery. I come here whenever I need a quiet moment, Jack said. Seems like you might need a few of those. Emily nodded. It's been a difficult few days. Jack glanced at her but didn't rush her to explain. After a moment of silence, Emily felt comfortable enough to speak. I came here expecting someone to meet me, she said slowly, choosing her words carefully. But he changed his mind as soon as he saw me. Jack's face softened with understanding. I'm sorry, he said quietly. That's not right. It hurt more than I expected, Emily admitted. I thought maybe this time things would be different. He took a breath before speaking again. People can be blind sometimes, he said. They miss what's right in front of them. Emily felt something warm grow in her chest. Jack's words didn't feel like sympathy. They felt like truth. After a moment, Jack sat on a patch of grass and looked up at the sky. My family's ranch is just a few miles from here, he said. We don't have much, but it's home. If you ever need a safe place to sit, think, or just rest, you're welcome. Emily hesitated. I don't want to be a burden. You wouldn't be, Jack replied. My family likes helping people, and I enjoy good company. She sat beside him on the grass, watching the wind move the blades softly. She felt something she hadn't felt in a long time, peace. They spent a long time talking that afternoon. Jack shared stories from the ranch, funny moments, small challenges, and the joy of working with animals. Emily shared pieces of her past, careful with her words but honest. Jack listened without rushing her, without judging her, without making her feel small. Before they returned to town, Jack looked at her gently and said, Emily, don't let one person's mistake make you doubt your worth. Some people only see the surface, but some of us see the whole picture. Emily didn't know how to respond. Her heart felt warm, almost fragile, but she managed a soft smile. Thank you, she whispered. Jack tipped his hat slightly. Anytime. As they walked back, Emily realized something important. For the first time in a very long time, she didn't feel like she needed to hide her red hair. She didn't feel judged. She felt seen in a good way, a way that made her feel like she mattered. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing. Meeting Jack had changed something inside her. He had brought light into a place she thought would stay dark forever, and without knowing it, Emily had already begun walking toward a new chapter of her life. one filled with kindness, hope, and a connection she never expected to find. Emily woke up on a morning that felt different from all the others. She couldn't explain why. Maybe it was the soft sunlight that warmed her room, or maybe it was the peaceful quiet outside, or maybe it was the gentle feeling inside her chest, a feeling that had grown slowly over the past days without her fully noticing. She felt hopeful, something she hadn't felt in a long time. Ever since she had met Jack, the world around her seemed a little brighter. She had started exploring the town more comfortably. People still looked at her red hair from time to time, but it didn't sting the way it used to. She didn't feel alone anymore, not with the memory of Jack's warm smile and kind words lingering in her heart. That afternoon, Emily decided to visit the hill where she and Jack had sat together. She carried her notebook, hoping to write something meaningful. The sky was wide and blue, and the wind was gentle as she walked along the familiar path. She reached the hilltop and sat down on the soft grass. From there, she could see the fields stretching far beyond the town, glowing golden under the sun. She had just opened her notebook when she heard footsteps behind her. She turned, and to her surprise, she saw Jack walking up the path. He was holding his hat in one hand, wiping a bit of dust off his shirt with the other. "Thought I might find you here," he said with a smile. Emily felt her heart flutter, a soft, warm feeling spreading through her chest. "I wanted a quiet place to write," she said. "Good choice," he replied, sitting down beside her. "This hill has a way of calming a person." They sat together for a few moments, enjoying the peaceful breeze. Emily watched the grass sway slowly, feeling the calmness settle deep inside her. Jack glanced at her notebook and asked, "Writing something special today?" "I'm trying," she said, "but sometimes the words don't come easily." Jack looked at her gently. "Words come when the heart is ready. No need to rush." Emily smiled at that. Jack had a way of speaking that made everything feel simple and safe. After a small pause, he said, "There's something I've wanted to ask you." Emily turned slightly, unsure of what was coming. "What is it?" Jack took a slow breath, as if choosing his words carefully. "I know you came here expecting a very different life, and I know things didn't go the way they were supposed to. But I want you to know, you're not stuck. You still have choices." Emily looked down at her hands. "Sometimes I'm not sure what my choices are anymore." Jack gently touched the grass, pulling off a small piece and tossing it lightly. "Well, for starters, you could come visit my family's ranch. You don't have to decide anything big. Just visit. Meet my folks. See the place. If you like it, maybe you could help out for a while. And if you don't, that's all right too." Emily lifted her eyes to him. "Why would you invite me?" she asked softly. Jack looked at her with steady kindness. "Because I think you're someone worth knowing. And because I don't want you to feel alone here." She felt tears gently rising behind her eyes, not from sadness but from the deep kindness in his voice. She wasn't used to people wanting her around without conditions. "Thank you," she whispered. "I'd like to visit." A bright smile spread across Jack's face, the kind of smile that warmed even the coldest days. "Good," he said. "I'll take you tomorrow morning if that's all right." Emily nodded, feeling a new excitement in her heart. The next morning, the sky was filled with soft colors as the sun rose. Jack arrived at the boarding house with his horse hitched outside and a little wagon behind it. Emily stepped out in her simple dress, carrying her small bag. She felt shy, but hopeful. "You ready?" Jack asked. "Yes," she said with a small smile. As they rode down the dirt path, Emily watched the scenery change. Open fields, fences, grazing animals, and the warm glow of morning sunlight made everything look peaceful. Jack sat beside her, handling the reins carefully. "My family's ranch may not be fancy," he said, "but it's full of love. I think that's more important than anything," Emily replied. When they reached the ranch, Emily felt a mix of nervousness and wonder. The house was simple but inviting, with a porch and a few worn-out steps. The barn stood proudly in the distance, and chickens wandered around the yard. A woman with gentle eyes and silver-streaked hair stepped out of the house. "Jack," she called cheerfully. "You're home early." "Ma," Jack said with a grin. "This is Emily." His mother looked at Emily kindly. "Welcome, dear," she said. "Come inside. You must be tired from the ride." Emily felt her heart relax. There was no judgment in her eyes, only genuine warmth. Inside the house, the air smelled of fresh bread and herbs. The wooden furniture was old but well polished, giving the house a cozy feeling. Jack's father soon joined them, an older man with a friendly face and hands that showed years of hard work. He greeted Emily with a firm but kind handshake. "Any friend of Jack's is welcome here," he said. Emily felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. She felt accepted, without hiding anything about herself. Throughout the day, Jack showed her the barn, the animals, the fields, and the quiet corners of the ranch where he liked to sit and think. Emily listened as he talked about the history of the ranch, the challenges they faced, and the small joys that kept them going. At one point, Jack stopped walking and looked at her seriously. "Emily, I want to tell you something." She met his eyes softly. "What is it?" He took a breath, and his voice grew gentle but firm. "The moment I saw you on that street, holding your notebook, I felt like I was looking at someone special. Not because of what you looked like, but because of the calm in your eyes. And then when the sunlight hit your hair, well, it was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen." Emily felt her cheeks warm. No one had ever spoken about her hair with such admiration. She didn't know how to respond. Jack continued. "People can be foolish. They make judgments without thinking. But I'm not one of those people. I see you. All of you. And I think you're someone worth standing beside." Emily felt tears rise, but they were tears of happiness. "Jack, I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," he replied softly. "Just know that you're welcome here. Not as someone who needs rescuing, but as someone who deserves a place where she can shine." His words wrapped around her heart gently, like a warm blanket on a cold night. She realized she had found something she didn't even know she was searching for, a place where she didn't have to hide. And a person who saw her beauty, even when she doubted it. As the days passed, Emily visited the ranch more often. She helped Jack's mother with chores, learned how to feed the animals, and found comfort in the simple rhythm of ranch life. Jack was always there, guiding her gently, talking to her about everything and nothing, making her laugh, and seeing her with a kindness that touched her deeply. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky with soft shades of orange and pink, Jack and Emily stood by the fence watching the horses. "Emily," Jack said quietly. "Yes?" she replied, her heart already beating faster. "I don't know what your plans were when you came here, but if you ever decide you want to stay, I'd be honored. Not because I want to replace what you lost, but because I see a future here with you in it." Emily felt her breath catch. She looked at him, and in his eyes, she saw sincerity, respect, and warmth. She saw a man who valued her heart, not the color of her hair. She took a small step closer. "Jack, I think I've finally found where I belong." His smile grew, slow and full of emotion. He gently took her hand, and for the first time in her life, Emily felt truly seen. Not as someone different, not as someone strange, but as someone loved. The wind blew softly, stirring her bright red hair around her face. Jack looked at it with deep admiration. "You're brighter than the sun," he whispered. And this time, Emily didn't look away. She smiled, feeling warm from the inside out. A new chapter had begun. One that wasn't planned. One that wasn't expected. But one that felt like home.